Well, folks, I am pleased to announce that it is time for another episode of TikTok Gate, where we have previously had Tattoo Gate, DIY Gate, Fence Gate, and now we have Shedgate. We really are starting to tick off every possible gate situation that we can. We still don't have Gate yet, though, which I'm very disappointed about. If someone out there can please have an argument over the ownership or just something to do with a gate, that would be great, thank you. So the main person we're talking about today is Meg in New England with 36,000 followers, who has recently uploaded quite a few videos explaining that she is now being sued due to this ownership dispute of a shed.
I'm being sued, which I think is absolutely crazy because I do not think I should be being sued right now. And I would like to read to you what the lawsuit says. And I don't know, maybe get some opinions. If you're an attorney here on TikTok, please, for the love of God, give me your opinions, but I do not retain you. I cannot afford your fees.
Well, as a matter of fact, we do have a response from a lawyer a little bit later on in the video, but first of all, let's add some context to this. So she then goes on to read the claim description of the lawsuit.
On September 15th, 2022, I bought a shed from a gentleman at this address in New Hampshire. I paid in full and I received a receipt signed by that gentleman with the understanding that I would pick it up in July of the following year.
Okay, so when I first watched this video, there was a few things that confused me. First of all, $5,000 for a shed. Seems a bit much, doesn't it? I guess when I hear someone say shed, I just assume like, you know, a normal garden shed, just made up of wood. There's nothing really in there. You just kind of dump all your stuff in there. It's not really like that. We will see the shed in question a little bit later on in the video. It's more of like a tiny home, if you will, than a shed. Well, I guess they call it a shed, technically. But also, as we just heard Meg say, this person bought the property and said that they were going to collect it the following year, which seems a bit off to me. I don't know why you purchase something like a shed and then pick it up a year later, but that's apparently what he agreed to, and if they did agree to that and it's in writing, then fair enough.
The gentleman in question is the seller that I bought my house from. I bought my house in March of 2023. The seller sold a shed to a man in September of 2022. That man was going to come pick up the shed July 2023. I don't know who would willingly give a stranger thousands of dollars and say, I'll be back in 10 months to get the item that I bought. Maybe some people do business that way, not me.
Okay, so that's some very important context. Now, for full transparency's sake, when I watched this, I didn't really know what the answer was. Like, who actually officially owns this shed? I did assume that if this person really did purchase this shed for $5,000, I believe they said, and they really did purchase it from the person who owned it at the time, and it's in writing that they now own the shed, I would assume that that person probably does own the shed now. Now, obviously, it's a lot more complicated than that because Meg has purchased this property that happens to have the shed on it, and that was a part of the agreement, apparently. So basically, this bloke has sold the shed to two different people, and now one person actually has access to it because it's on her property. She bought all the property around it. But then you've got this other bloke saying he bought it a year ago, and he said he would collect it this year. So it's a bit of a tricky situation. I think one thing that seems to be clear is that the person who owned this property to start off with has clearly done some dodgy stuff here, and he sold something to two different people.
When I appeared to pick it up, I was informed by Meg, me, that she and her husband had purchased the house and that the shed was included in the sale, and they would not allow me to pick it up. Yeah, because the shed was included in the sale of the house. You spent $5,000 for a shed, I spent $500,000 for a house that included that shed. You are a stranger to me. Who showed up at my door. No, you showed up at my door. I wasn't there. You put a handwritten note in my mailbox, which I believe you're not supposed to put your hands in other people's mailboxes. And so I called you politely and I said, hi, I'm so sorry. We own the house now. The shed's not for sale.
I mean, I've got to say, this must be the most sought after shed of all time, right? I don't think there's ever been a dispute like this in front of so many eyes with these videos getting millions of views over a shed. So we really are making history right here.
Several attempts to contact the gentleman that I purchased the shed from. He said he would reimburse me, but he never did. The realtor defendants did not disclose that the shed had been sold to me. Realtors cannot disclose information that they don't have. I think the bigger question is, why did an individual sell a shed and then 1 month later put their house for sale on the market and not tell anyone ever that that shed had been sold to someone? Now I'm kind of stressed out. I'm super stressed out, actually. I think I'll have a pretty good case. Like, I think if I can get everything together, I'll be good. But What would you do in this situation?
Yeah, I mean, look, hearing the basics of the situation, it all does seem a bit silly, right? We are seeing people argue over a shed, but when you add context to it, it's a very expensive shed, $5,000. If it was any other purchase that was $5,000, there would rightly be a dispute. It's just the fact that it's, you know, a shed. It sounds a bit silly. But now, even bigger than that, it's officially in a lawsuit. Like, she's being sued over this, so it is a very big situation. Now, in a follow-up video, Meg responds to a bunch of comments. People were saying, like, is sure this guy's, like, not trying to scam you? Like, is what he's saying is actually correct? Like, she really just feel like this guy did purchase the shed and he's trying to collect it, but there's this dispute now because she feels like she owns it.
No, I do not think that this is a scam. I think it's a scam in the sense that someone paid money for something that they're no longer in possession of, not a scam in the sense that this person is lying. Why did they wait 10 months to pick up the shed? They don't live in the state. So, like, they have some property in the state, but they're not here 24/7. I think that was his motivation for not picking it up right away.
And look, we actually spoke about a situation quite a while ago at this point where a TikToker accidentally purchased a stolen vehicle, and because she purchased this vehicle from someone who didn't actually own the property, she actually lost the vehicle. Now, obviously, this situation's a bit different because she, like, purchased property here, and the property agreement apparently included this shed as well. And also, it's not stolen, right? She purchased it from the person who did own the shed at one point, but now apparently doesn't because this guy purchased it. I don't really know what's going on at this point. It's all a bit complicated, but like I said, we will hear from a lawyer in just a second. In fact, you know what? I was going to leave this to a little bit later on in the video to actually show you the shed, but I do realize that listening to them talk about this and not knowing what the shed looks like is probably pretty annoying. So here's the shed in question.
So this is the outside. Our property is rather unique in the sense that there's 4 outbuildings, this being one of them, and this is the smallest of them all. Welcome to my crib, MTV. Come on up. As you get close, you'll see this lovingly hand-carved bunkhouse sign. We also have a metal roof, which is great for listening to the rain pitter-patter on those rainy New England days. Pine needles and cobwebs everywhere, but that really just adds to the allure. Welcome to my bunkhouse.
Okay, so, I mean, look, it's a shed, right? But it is also a pretty fancy shed. It's obviously been designed to sleep in, and I get it, right? If you did take out, like, the beds and stuff, like, it would just kind of maybe look like a shed. Again, a bit of a fancy shed. But this is the shed in question. This is what everyone's arguing about. This is what has actually caused a lawsuit now. And, yeah, let me know your thoughts. Do you believe that that should be worth $5,000? I'm not too sure myself, but fair enough. And also, just to add some context to the fact that there's this random shed that's part of this property that they're disputing over. In this property, there's actually 4 different buildings, and Meg goes on to explain this.
Yes, I will show you the other 3 buildings on our property. In total, not including the house, there's 4 buildings out there that were put in place by the original owners.
Okay, so it's actually 5 buildings. There's 4 not including the home. And the other buildings in question are a lot bigger. I'll skim through this video right now so you can see. But there's this one right here, which is kind of like this, like, big barn. That's still not even the biggest one, I don't believe. But she goes on to do, like, a tour. She has this, like, a playhouse with, like, a pool table and stuff in it. She says that she's, like, going to be renting these out and stuff. There's also this one right here. As we can see, this one maybe is actually a bit bigger, to be fair. And then I believe she shows another one in this video as well, if we skim through. And yeah, oh, that might be the same one. Okay, right. Fair enough. There's some other buildings, you get the point. She also does go on to say that she offered to help this guy get in contact with the previous owner to try and dispute with him, because a lot of people in the comments were saying, like, why is he trying to sue you? He should be trying to sue the person who sold you the property. And she did actually clarify in the comments that the previous owner is involved in the lawsuit too. There's multiple people involved, she just so happens to be one of them. But yeah, like I said, she did say that she wanted to help this guy and he didn't want it, I guess.
Those of you asking me to have empathy with the guy and work with the guy, I offered to go after the owner of the home, the previous owners, with this guy. He's the one that decided to do a lawsuit and make me a defendant. So unfortunately at this point, regardless of how much empathy I have, we're on opposite sides of the table. And that wasn't my choice to put us on opposite sides of the table. So,
but now let's get to a lawyer's opinion. So this is coming from Alt Cody, a TikToker who also happens to be a lawyer, and this is opinions on the matter.
You don't know me, but I am in fact the internet's favorite lawyer, and excuse my voice, I'm a bit hungover today, but unfortunately, the guy probably owns your shed. I know what you're thinking, but that doesn't make any sense because I bought the house and the house had the shed. But the problem you have to understand is it's an order of operations kind of thing, right? That is, if I own a house and that house has a shed on it, and then someone comes along and says they want to buy my shed. I say, okay, cool, $5,000, sold. We sign a contract, we agree to it. It doesn't even have to be in writing. We just agree that I'm selling you the shed. You give me the money, the shed is now sold. It's yours because I agreed to sell it to you. I then cannot later sell that shed to somebody else when I sell my home. Yes, you think you bought the shed because it's listed on the disclosures and it's part of the purchase contract for the property. That's great, except it wasn't his shed to sell you. Once the shed was sold to somebody else, then that belongs to another person, and you can't sell somebody something that you don't own.
Yeah, I mean, that was my first initial thought process, but then I thought maybe it's more complicated, the fact that obviously this is part of a property agreement or whatnot. There is actually an interesting question here from someone saying, so shouldn't the previous homeowner owe her the shed, since that was part of the sale of the house? And yeah, that's an interesting question. If she bought this property, this shed was included, and now all of a sudden he didn't even own the shed anymore because he sold it, should he now owe Meg a shed? You would assume so, right? But again, legally, I'm not really sure.
You should probably get a lawyer on this one, because there is a higher than not probability that the guy that bought the shed is going to be entitled to the shed. And then you are going to file your own lawsuit against the seller of the house as to get recovery for the loss in value for the shed. Because he's the one that committed fraud against you, not the shed purchaser. It's the seller of the home. So he's probably going to get that shed, and you're going to have to take it up with the seller for selling you something that he didn't own. He's the one that committed the fraud. He didn't commit it against the said shed purchaser. He committed against you. I know that's not what you wanted to hear, but, you know.
Okay, well, there you have it. That is the opinions of a lawyer. It seems like this is going to be a very annoying situation to go through, right? This might even turn into multiple lawsuits, right? Especially if Meg loses the lawsuit. She might want to go on to, like, sue the person who sold her the property. It seems like it's going to be a bit of a pain in the arse. I would love to know your opinions in the comment section down below on everything that we spoke about in today's video, and I'm going to leave it there. So if you did enjoy, please do leave a like down below, subscribe if you are new, and until the next one, I'll see you guys in a bit. Alright, goodbye.